several different blocks or minutes of one another, and that's going to be one thing that we're going to talk about today. And I said, you know, but I love working for you and I love what I do. She was very understanding with the pregnancies, but we were also professionals and we were also serious about our work. And, you know, we were sought after for representation because we had that good balance. But at the same time, at the end of the day, she always knew what it was like that I had to take off of work because the kids were sick, or what it meant to stay home on pregnancy, on maternity leave, and then how to ease back into work after the 2 babies. Then I was approached with an opportunity to go work for St. Tammany Parish. It was a shift for me in profession. I'm now not in active litigation. I am now executive counsel for the parish president, more of an in-house general counsel role, which I love. And it took that commute out of the equation. Now both of my children, Anna Kate is 7, Brady is 4, they are both at the same school, Married and Queen of Peace, which is in Mandeville. I live in Madisonville. So I have a great little triangle of home, work, and school with the kids. And it's not easy, but you know, you cope. And both my husband and I are very flexible. He does the punch clock. So if we have to stay home with the children, we split days. If they're sick, we split the day. But it's a good balance that I've been now able to get. So, you know, if you don't get it right now, you will get it. Just you gotta work towards, but you gotta stick it out, because one thing that someone told me about having children is that it always gets better. So it's always going to get better. So that's my story.
Great, great. Thank you so much, Kelly. And now we'll hear from Beth.
Hey, I have 5 children. Jackson is 17, Kaylee's 15, Patrick's 13, Connor will be 11 in a couple of weeks, and Laura will be 9 in about 4 weeks. I graduated law school pregnant for my first child. And so he's actually thinking about law, and he asked me, he said, Mom, you were pregnant when you took the bar, does that mean that I'm going to get some consideration? I was like, I don't think so, baby. but anyway, so I've always had kids while I was practicing. I started at the district attorney's office in Houston, and I've been there for a couple of years because in Texas they let you have a 3rd-year bar card, and so you're basically practicing under the supervision of a supervising attorney, which is a wonderful thing. But I got slated for the child abuse division, and having a young child and being in the child abuse division is just not a great mix. And after a really short period of time, I realized I just couldn't do it. I couldn't look at the crime scene photos. I couldn't take the statements, and it was just too emotionally distressing. Well, at that same time, my husband decided to go to grad school, so we moved home, and we came to New Orleans. I went into civil litigation, very active plaintiff's practice, where I was there. I started on a Monday, and my first trial was a week later on a Thursday, so a week and a half. It was a baptism by fire. I had my second child, and it was right at the time my husband was graduating, and so we moved, and I stayed home. It was never my plan to stay home, but I did for 12 years. I did take on work, but I was home with kids, 5 of them, over the course of time. But we moved first from Houston to New Orleans, from New Orleans to Atlanta, from Atlanta to Zurich, Switzerland, from Zurich, Switzerland back to Atlanta, from Atlanta to Birmingham, Alabama, from Birmingham to Frederick, Maryland, back to Birmingham, and then finally, 5 weeks before Katrina, we bought a house in Mandeville so we could be home, and got 3 trees in the house. But and really, so Katrina kind of put me into a position to go back to work. My youngest was starting kindergarten. We needed a lot of repairs to the house. I thought, okay, it's time. But along the way, I knew I needed a lot of flexibility, or a job that paid exceptionally well to take daycare. And so I was appointed a tax examiner in Georgia, and they allowed me to work at night. I could go in at 5 in the evening. This is for the U.S. Department of Treasury, and I was looking at cases and preparing them for prosecution for corporate tax fraud. It was not my area of expertise, but basically I knew since I had been a prosecutor that I could look at the documents and figure it out. And I could go in at 5 p.m. and stay as late as I wanted, and call it a day. And then when I was in Birmingham, I took project work. And there were a lot of times I didn't take work at all because the kids kept me very busy. So it was not my plan. My mother raised 5 kids and worked full time, and she made it look easy. And so I thought, what's going to be the problem? Which is probably a very foolish and unrealistic way to look at it. Life circumstances just worked out that I was able to stay home, which was great for me. My husband is a professor at Tulane Medical School, and so he's got a lot more flexibility than I do in terms of time. But I'm now at Gills Bar, which is great. I work 36 hours a week. If the kids get sick, they go to Tulane Medical School. and there's lots of doctors they can see. So it's a wonderful thing. But we've learned to just figure it out. Now, are my days busy, crazy? Absolutely. Last night we had one at the talent show, one at soccer, one at ballet, and one had an IEP for school. That's a typical Thursday for us. But it works out, and over time it gets better. The kids eventually grow up, and it gets a little less hectic. But I think you'll always find new things that fit in to fill your time. And so you do need to learn to say no, but it works out. It works out.
Thank you so much for that. I'm going to just briefly tell you a little bit about me. I graduated from college, got married a week later, taught school for a few years, and then we started having our children. So I was a stay-at-home mom, ended up having 4 children, and then all of a sudden I am actually nursing the 10-month-old, and my husband walks in the room at 11:45 on New Year's Eve night and says, "Cheryl, I have something to talk to you about. I don't love you anymore. I want out, and there's someone else." By the time he finished this, it was exactly midnight on TV. The ball was dropping. My life changed completely. He left the next day, left me with 4 children, no work. I didn't even know how to change air conditioning filters. I didn't know how to do anything except take care of my children. I cried for 2 years. I was very fortunate. I had a very supportive family and friends. And then after crying for 2 years, I decided, I need to do something. I actually went to UNO, and since I had been a teacher before, I figured, that's really the only thing I can do. So I went to UNO, got recertified, ended up getting a Master's of Education. Right before I graduated, I decided, I can do this. I can go to school, work at UNO as a graduate assistant, balance the 4 children. I want more. I want more. So that's when I decided I was going to go to law school. Everyone thought I was absolutely crazy. You can't go to law school with 4 kids, no husband, no help, just child support coming in. Luckily, it did come in. He was very good about paying his child support. And so I went to law school with 4 children. The baby was not in kindergarten yet. They were 4, 9, 13, 15. So I had carpools at St. Angela, carpools at Jesuit. And I was very lucky because when I went to law school, I met a great group of women. I see one of them in the audience right now, Renee Smith. And other people, what they did is they let me have all the study groups at my house, because during the day I still have to take care of the baby. One of my study group members looked on top of my refrigerator and said, "What is that?" I said, "It's 25 lunches." "What are you talking about?" On Sunday night, I would make 25 lunches, 5 for each one of the children and 5 for me, and have the bags up there with everyone's names, and then every morning I would just fill the bags up. You have to be prepared, and whatever will go wrong or can go wrong will go wrong, so you have to have alternate plans. At this time, each one of the panel members are going to share some quick tips that they have used, and they're also going to ask you for your input so that we can all educate each other. Before we do that, I want to ask you by a show of hands to give us some information so that we will understand our audience. How many are married in the audience? Ooh, okay. And how many of you are divorced? Okay. How many of you are widowed? Okay. And how many of you are single?